Today, I'm up over $80,000 day trading, and in today's review, I'll be going over exactly how I did that. Now, I had two trades. I had a loser and a winner. Let's say you had a 50% win rate. How could you be green today? Well, let's get right into it. So, coming into the open, I had a pretty clear idea in what I wanted to do with price, or what I wanted to see price do, as I've had for the past couple weeks. As you guys could see through a higher time frame, right? What we've done consistently week in and week out for the past couple weeks is you continuously trade higher. So as we're putting in new highs, as we're seeing higher highs being formed and new all-time highs consistently, in my opinion, as I've said before, there's no reason for me to look to play downside whatsoever. Unless we see price flip off a high and we see large higher time frame invalidation through bullish sequences. So like if we see higher time frame come down and we see arrays that are bullish get violated and we see bearish arrays get respected, there's no reason for my higher time frame outlook to be downside, right? At this point, trend is your friend. Sentiment in the market is what you should more so look to ride with. That's what I've more so looked to do today. So we took two trades today. Both were longs. One stopped out, and then the other hit for TP. For my bias kind of coming into the open. Again, nothing too significant via higher time frame, but what I was looking for price to do was I was looking for a retracement off the open. One of the first pieces I mentioned in the morning at around 8 a.m., about an hour and a half, an hour and 15 before the market opened, I said, good morning, folks. Looking to coming into the open, still floating at all-time highs. I'm bullish naturally due to the all-time high price, but would not mind a pre-market / opening range move where we get a retrace fulfilling some influence or inefficiencies, then heading back higher, or else it'd be a very hard morning for us to work at literal all-time highs. Opening range move into overnight low, a sweep, then a pushback to highs would be ideal to continue sentiment with a given entry model. 0.5 R day since it's a Monday. So kind of the outlook that I wanted to see price do. Initially overnight through Asia, we had seen a pretty significant pump where we had seen price come up, fill its new week opening gap, and then we had seen price come up and trade into new all-time highs. What I wanted to see price do was kind of come down here, retrace into overnight lows, giving a potential and interest drawing higher. Because I wanted to see price come down, I wanted to see price take out its sell side. That way we have no chance or a very low probability of price coming down and needing to trade into these overnight lows. If we come down, we take these lows and we sweep back up. It makes total sense if we were to come back up and see a push back up. So that was kind of the incentive with what I wanted to see price do off the open. Again, kind of a lower time frame move lower, like a shorter move lower for a longer term push back up. What do? Well, coming into the open, we see price essentially slowly but surely come back down here, and we see price come down and sweep these lows. A pretty hectic morning to start off the session because we had some significant divergence via the open. NQ was a lot weaker as opposed to ES being a lot more bullish. How could you tell? Well, if you look at the open and you see what we did, NQ ends up taking out its Asia low, which was below its London low at around 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you never see ES end up taking out its Asia low. ES only ends up taking out its London low after, right, around when NQ ends up taking out its Asia low, right? So or NQ takes out its London low at 9:30, right? You could see off the open here, 9:30, and ES only ends up taking that out 15 minutes later. So there's your bit of divergence. You could say ES was lagging whatsoever, or whatever you want to say, but it's clear that NQ was by far the weaker asset. Now, we had seen price come down here, and we essentially wanted to see price take out overnight lows. We happened to do that. From there, we just waited for a potential sweep. Then we eventually got that. We saw a beautiful push into this low. Then we came back up, saw a bit of a sweep. Initially priced looked a lot better than what it offered eventually. And so the first trade that I was looking to potentially take was a long. If I show you kind of the setup and what I was looking for price to do, this was not one of those. The setup was right here. The first take of the day was this potential, or happened bullish reaction eyeing this potential. You see me point at a potential 1 minute gap, go invert entry, but it was more so a 1 minute bullish gap retrace that we wanted to see price tap into. We happened to take our entry. Our stop was based off our model stop, utilizing the candle wick open on the 1 minute gap to the bullish gap. Kind of two different arrays in one here. The reason I was able to use model stop here is because we had enough room in between entry to stop to where it gave the trade breathing room. You then see me mention I am long. We take the trade. However, we start to see price consolidate. This, in my opinion, though, was a very good setup. Believe it or not, although we had two trades, the first trade, this trade here, was a loser, and the second one was a winner. I like this trade in terms of a more technical aspect than the second trade, believe it or not. Like, crazy enough, right? Lance, what the hell? Yeah, I said that, right? First trade, which was a loser, I like better as a take than I did the second trade. Although the second trade panned out, the reason it did is because we had more structure and price eventually started to pick up. This, however, just kind of consolidated and chopped up, and we see price come down here and eventually tag out stop. From here, we were down half an hour as today's a half hour risk day, and we end up seeing price essentially consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. We don't end up taking out a second or taking a second trade until the PM part of the session. Now, before I go over the second trade, I think it's important to make sure that you guys understand the patience that was required in order to get to this point. People overlook this severely. You guys have to remember, obviously you can make money in the stock market, but what's more important, people that overlook consistently, is that you have to save money as well. In between this first and second trade, a lot of traders would tilt out, get emotional off a stop like this, and continuously re-enter. After this initial entry, price was bad for a good time, right? A good bit of time, as we see NQ consistently chop and consolidate here. But then we eventually get the setup in where we go long on an ES 5-minute gap go invert. But remember, we end up getting stopped out on this trade all the way at around, when I mentioned the Nodi, right here, 10:30 a.m. is when I get stopped out, and I don't end up taking another trade all the way until 11:58 a.m. So about an hour and a half later is when I took. People overlooked this. This hour and a half of me waiting till the next setup, it's on purpose, right? You need patience in order to get to this, right? Because the moment you start to force shit and just take stuff that isn't gonna fit your model, that's how you put yourself in a hole. And that's how a trade like this doesn't really do much for you. But for today, it did a lot. It put us from red to green. This trade here was a 5-minute gap go invert. We had seen price come down. We initially see ES come down here, take out London lows. We then see ES come back down, and we see price take out this low, creating a new low of day, then a sweep back up. Clear in range in range day. We then see price come up, and we simply look for we look for ES to go invert off its 5-minute gap. We eventually get that, and here is the trade. The trade on ES was right here. 5-minute gap go invert. A beautiful 5-minute gap go invert. Confirmation on this trade here through the Discord as they took with me live was at 11:59 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I mentioned I am long right here. Boom. Everyone knows. Then I said thumbs up if confirmation for you was 11:58, which I meant to say 11:59 a.m. Eastern Standard close. And they do it, right? They bagged, right? They did really well. This is stuff I like seeing in the Discord more than anything else. I don't care how much anyone's up. If people are really understanding how this shit works and how our trading works, that's all I care about. Because once you learn how to do this on your own and you don't need me, that's where you hit jackpot, right? Once you learn the skill set. We eventually go break even stops off high of day. Our target of interest was Asia highs. It was a slow trade, but we eventually got it. The importance again of patience. Not only did it require patience in between trade number 1 and 2, that hour and a half that we waited, but it also required patience holding this trade. This trade was about a couple hours long as well. A pretty tough hold, right? We end up taking the trade at 12. We ended up holding this trade until close. So about a 3-hour, 4-hour trade. A pretty tough trade. But again, if you have your patience, it's always there. I end up going down from around $36,000 to have a $67,000 trade. This is just my live account. Include prop firms. Did really well. Closing out phenomenal on the day. TPT's up really solid. And yeah, so a beautiful session overall. Again, recognition of range, recognizing that price is not the best right now. We simply waited and we were patient, and we eventually got the second technical setup, which was a sweep of low of day and then a push back up. So that's pretty much that. That's the review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and on to the next one.